Fourstop is on a mission to combat fraud through one API. I'm joined by Ian and Christian from Fourstop to learn more. So, gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So, Ian, I'd like to start with you. Talk to me a little bit about who Fourstop is and who you're ultimately serving.
Okay. So, Fourstop is a German-based company. It was effectively set up about 2 years ago in Cologne, and the objective of the business is to be a global aggregator for KYC, KYB and transaction monitoring. The team itself is very well established. It's grown originally out of the high-risk gambling markets, the identity markets and the payments markets as well. So between the group, we've got over 100 years of experience in payments and KYC and compliance. And the key thing we see is that Fourstop is all about aggregation. It's all about one API. It's all about orchestration, about melding lots of discrete components into one flow for a whole raft of different use cases.
And Christian, what challenges is Fourstop solving for in the industry right now?
I think there's a number of challenges around automation, speeding up that KYC process, driving down costs, having if you look at the UK, for instance, FTE numbers in large banks are nowhere near what they were 10 years ago, but they still have to deal with the same volume of work that they had maybe 10 years ago. So we're trying to speed up that process, drive down the cost as much as possible, and have as light a touch until really when it's required on that application.
And what trends are you currently tracking in the industry or trying to stay on top of ultimately so you can best serve your clients?
I think the biggest trend in payments across the globe right now is all around mergers and acquisitions. And for me, that's really where Fourstop come into their own, because a bank will buy another bank or take on an extra 5 or 6 PSPs, whatever it may be, but they're buying a new book of business that they might not have any knowledge around. They might not know how to integrate a legacy system. And with Fourstop solutions and Fourstop's knowledge and the way we can harmonise that data, I think that is a massive play for us and something that we're helping a number of companies solve.
And Ian, how have you seen the industry ultimately evolve, and where do you think it's headed?
I think, we are seeing a lot of convergence, simple as that. And historically, if you saw you saw the acquirers and the PSPs converging with the risk engines, for example, you're now seeing a lot of identity providers converging within that process flow. But I think the reality of it is that you've got lots and lots of discrete endpoints, and it becomes difficult, really, certainly from a technical perspective, to start sort of integrating one or only 2 endpoints within that flow, purely because of time. And what we are seeing is, as far as lead times, we're talking to some organisations and they're saying, well, it takes anything up to 9 months to integrate one fraud endpoint. Yeah, and by then that might be legacy by the time it goes live. So it's all about the speed of being able to integrate multiple processes and multiple endpoints within one fluid process. And we're now seeing that more and more organisations really want single API. They want orchestration layers. They want to have the ability to also enable vendors to compete, especially with regards to onboarding rates, for example, or looking at sort of further reducing risk by applying multiple endpoints. And the question is, how do they do that quickly? So, and not only how do you do it quickly, but how do you do that globally as well? And that's obviously one of the key things we're seeing, where we're seeing this convergence of payments with fraud and identity, and then how do you actually meld that within one big orchestration layer, basically.
Absolutely. So could you share a successful use case then?
Yeah, and we've got a whole raft of them. We tend to... Fourstop is very much an enterprise platform, so we've got multiple use cases coming out of that. There might be in isolation around transaction monitoring, they might be around merchant onboarding, merchant underwriting, or they might be around KYC. But equally what we're seeing is around payments facilitation, for example. There's a requirement to connect, so to connect KYB processes to transaction monitoring processes, for example. Historically, they might well be isolated, yeah? They might require totally separate integrations. So where we see our bigger deployments, they're more enterprise-wide. So it might be, and we might be integrating into multiple systems. So it might be the merchant onboarding process might be through the CRM, might be through Salesforce, whereas the fraud management effectively is connected to the payments area as well. So what we're seeing is that within those enterprise environments, we're connecting those at the same time. The great thing is you can see everything, as well through those systems. So you can review. You've got the ability for agents to review within the console lots of localized performance endpoints in accordance to how many merchants you're onboarding, how many transactions you're handling, what your fraud risk rates are, and then if you start looking at that on a local country demographic basis as well. So our most successful integrations are really those whereby the client is looking at multiple use cases, maybe multiple platforms internally, but equally having the ability just to turn on different endpoint components within those integrations, basically. So.
And Christian, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about Fourstop's global KYB solution and what the reception has ultimately been.
So the reception's been good. It's still, I'd say, in its infancy, maybe two or 3 months. But the great thing for us is it's just another evolution of trying to be that one-stop shop. So Ian just touched on about having this global view, but if you have the transactional data and then obviously that flows into the KYC and the KYB, it really does give Fourstop a sort of overall view of the payments ecosystem. And so that, for us, the KYB is just another development of that. And everything we do, we try and use a waterfall project logic. So for us, the KYB will just run smoothly into the KYC and be able to waterfall that down. And the good thing is, if we have all that information, we can always pin that back to the transactional data, and that for me is a really, really strong tool to have. But it's in its early days, but we are having a lot of traction, a lot of interest. The good thing about a Fourstop as well is, as young as, say, a business might be for being around for 2 years, the founders and the development team have worked together for over a decade. So our technology and the way we work and how nimble we are is very developed, very robust. So for us, again, it's another evolution, and I think something that will just continue to improve. That our size, we've been very open with people in regards to feedback. So we're streamlining the process, how an underwriting team would like to see that. So we've been open to ideas to try and improve the product, and I think especially from this show, the interest has been quite astounding. So we're quite buoyed by where it's going to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think what we are seeing is that if you look at the transaction monitoring space and the KYC space, it's quite mature from a vendor perspective. It's not mature from an aggregation perspective, but I think that hopefully will become mature over the next couple of years. But certainly as far as merchant underwriting, we're seeing that it's quite a big crux in the market. There's a big gap there. We've done quite a bit of research already on average times to onboard a merchant is anything up to 26 days. The cost of doing it. Some organisations said it costs anything up to $5,000, for example, to run through that process. So it seems to be, and a lot of it is still legacy based. The gathering of documents, the case management processes. How do you connect the business data up with the personal data on the UBOs? There's still a lot of friction in this. It's a heavyweight process, and to be frank, what we are seeing, it does require multiple vendors that do different types of things to get that complete picture. And historically, a lot of acquirers have been going and doing, literally, they get one set of documents, they haven't got sufficient, so they have to go back and demand more information. They're always going back as well to the applicant. right? And the applicant, there's delay within the applicant responding, etc., when they can go and fetch this stuff through other electronic sources anyway in the first place. So I'd certainly with KYB we see there is a big gap, especially as far as global merchant onboarding as well, and trying to speed that whole process up. It's big cost.
Yeah,
it's big cost things.
Definitely, and going back to what you asked about that trends, if you look at from my experience in the acquiring space, that it went from a standard 1 or 2 days to underwrite someone, and then certain vectors, certain MCC codes literally wanted to be boarded within the hour. So everyone sort of shifted focus to real-time underwriting, but in a way where they was leaving themselves wide open to a lot of risks. Using someone like ForStop and the technology that we have, and via the single API, we can manage all those relationships for the client, and we can do that very quickly and cleanly and in a way that they're going to stay compliant.
So looking at the roadmap then for ForStop, say the next 3 to 5 years, what can we expect next?
I think at the moment it's a good position to have, but for me we're being very reactive. We've had a lot of interest, a lot of inbound inquiries. Where I think Ian, myself, and Paul, we're running all over the globe trying to catch up with this business. I think for me personally, in a year's time, I think once it settles, it'd be very nice to be proactive and stand back and think, right, we're gonna do this in this region because of the opportunity here. So for me, it's more about the longer play of thinking where ForStop going to be from a real tactical alignment of where the business is going, where the opportunity is going to be. Because as I say, it's great at the moment, but we haven't had time to really, take a step back, breathe, and think about, where we're going to go in the long term.
Yeah. I mean, what I see as well is we've already integrated about 50 endpoints within the platform, and to actually do it properly, I would say we're about a third of the way through. We probably need to get another 100 endpoints. When I say properly globally, I mean what you tend to find, there's different nuances in different geographies, different supply bases, different compliance requirements, etc. So the key thing for us is continually evolving the vendor relationships, obviously the platform technology as well. As far as UI, developing the UI so it's very, very simple for a non-technical person literally to just switch, to switch workflows, switch vendors on or off, etc., etc. And that's the direction we're going. And we've certainly in the last 6 months, we've managed to develop a huge amount of traction. And for us, obviously, it's the next stage. We're A round at the moment. Obviously, we're looking to go to B later on next year. So it's all about traction, liquidity, proving the use case, or proving those use cases and getting them developed as far as very mature concepts in the marketplace. And it's starting to happen now. So.
Well, congratulations on your early success with ForStop, and I look forward to following its growth in the future. Right. So thank you both for your insights today.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
From Medici Studio, I'm Shannon Rossick.